Um, I just reached out because I'm not doing so good. I've been trying to call you for months now. You know, things aren't too great at home. I really need to talk to you. I know that things are busy for you and life is complicated, but I could really use you right now. Please give me a call when you can, because I don't think things are gonna get any better anytime soon.
It's been over 2 years since my best friend died. I'm also still getting phone calls from her to this day, but every time I answer, I never hear her speak. Her name was Jane, and I've been seeing her in my mirrors and everywhere I go. I know this comes off as an impossibility, but I swear it's the truth. I often think it's some sort of grief process, and I have brushed it off as time has gone on, but I've realized that it's truly real. I can't tell you this story without telling you everything. Right now, I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out to the crashing wave to the water below. She jumped from here. You might think I'm about to jump as well, but there is far more to this than you think. Jane and I met each other in 4th grade. What started as most childhood friendships blossomed into an inseparable bond. It began with passing notes next to each other at our desks at school, asking the important questions. What's your favorite color? Do you like this popular toy? Did you catch the last episode of Dragon Ball Z the other day? Like most kids do, but this was a little different. You see, we went to a deeply religious school, and a lot of the time the opposite gender friends was pretty frowned upon. So we decided to exchange email accounts. This was before the time of true social media, so email was really our best way of keeping in contact. That was until I got my first cell phone when I was in 6th grade. By this point, we were able to keep more in touch. I remember by the end of my 6th grade year, I was talking to Jane on the phone for hours at night, hiding under my blanket so my parents didn't catch me awake. We would also see each other at church, the one my school was connected to. Things stayed like this all through middle school. We had a shared enjoyment of what was called Neopets at the time, but when we were not indoors messing around on that, we would spend our summers together at her house or mine. We would play card games mostly, but unfortunately not the fun kind like Pokemon or something. Those were seen as evil at my school. But I did learn how to play blackjack over at her house for game night. I'm sure you can see the hypocrisy in that. It was when high school came that things started to change for us. Jane left my school to go to another at the end of 8th grade, so our friendship would be based on phone calls or emails to keep in touch when we didn't see each other at church or during the summer. The change made things harder than they needed to be, but it only made our time during the summer more dear to me. Things were good, even with the change, but she started to get a little weird at me by the time the end of 9th grade was coming. She asked me to meet her in the baptism room of the church, away from prying eyes one service, and I followed. What she told me changed everything in our friendship. What I didn't realize was that my feelings were more than just friendship. Hormones, you could say, but when she looked me in the eyes, a tinge of fear was speckled in those beautiful blue hues of hers. She told me that she loved me, and then it was all bliss. A warm tingle going up the front of my body from the butterflies in my stomach up to the fast thumping of my heart. I knew that I loved her too. But then her dad died, one night later.
I was just thinking about my dad. I mean, you don't have to answer. I know it's the middle of the night, but I was just thinking about him and how I used to think that he was overbearing and controlling, but the new guy that my mom got afterwards is far worse. I don't like him. Sorry to have called you. I just miss you. And I wish you'd call me back. I hope to hear from you soon.
I awoke to the sound of my phone vibrating next to my head. I was still dressed in my funeral attire. I drank myself half to death last night and I fell asleep on the couch. I didn't even take my shoes off. I must have tried to drink my feelings away again. It worked, but it was replaced by the bright light of my phone searing a hole in my head the size of a sun. With a groan, I picked it up and answered without looking. I said hello and heard nothing from the other end. It ended up disconnecting and I let the screen darken so I could read who had just called. Imagine my surprise when I saw it was Jane. I froze in place, staring at her name, which was looking back at me. I shook it off, figuring it might have been some sort of mistake of her phone being disconnected for good or something like that. I set my phone down and I slept the rest of the night away. Small incidents like this persisted through the week. I'd be at work and I'd notice a flicker in the reflection of my computer screen when I closed down for the day. Like a brief shadow, as if somebody appeared and ran away as quickly as they came. I put it off as a trick of the light. But it wasn't just at work. Every time I looked at anything reflective, unintentionally, something would disappear. A shadow running away from me. I decided to go to the doctor, but there was apparently nothing wrong with me. But more sleep was recommended, so I took that advice. Funny thing is, at the same time every night, 9:37 p.m., my phone would ring. Jane's number. Every time it happened, I would answer, like I was desperate to talk to her again. Since she died, I felt like a piece of my life was gone. I longed to hear her voice, but I never got a thing when I picked up the phone. Just silence. This went on for several months and I noticed my life started to unhinge. I started to question what was happening to me. That perhaps I was going insane. But every therapist I went to told me I was only dealing with grief. That I needed to find something constructive to do after work because stress and grief would make anyone go crazy. Yet I clearly never took this advice. Then one night, I finally saw my shadow. It was cold that night. I was fast asleep after being away since early that morning due to, well, not getting back to sleep the previous night. For the aforementioned reasons, obviously. My phone rang like clockwork and I picked it up. I said hello and called out Jane's name. Nothing. When the line disconnected, I let out a sigh, setting the phone down. That was when I heard a door slam on the other end of my apartment. It startled me to the point where I froze in place. When I did work up the courage to go and look, I opened the door to my bathroom. Inside there was nothing, except the shadow in my mirror. It was a blacked out shape and I couldn't make out any details until I turned on the light. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see my face. I saw Jane's. I let out a scream and turned off the light immediately, closing the door behind me. I let the heavy breaths leave me as I tried to put together the pieces in my mind of what I had just seen. Trying to be rational, I turned the light back on when I opened the door, and her face was gone. Instead, I saw my own, but I noticed there was just smudging on the mirror itself, as if someone had dragged their fingertips across the surface of the glass to write. I leaned close, letting my hot breath kiss the surface of the glass to reveal words. A chill ran down my spine as a cold bead of sweat dripped down the right side of my face. She wrote 2 words for me. You left.
Do you remember when we used to walk by the river as kids? I remember that trail. I still walk it every now and again. I'm sorry if I'm rambling and I was just woke up and remembered something. Anyway, I hope to hear from you soon. Miss you. Bye.
I can still feel this day on my skin. The sun was bright and I was with Jane. This was the day that I left. We were walking side by side near a river that was nestled within the trees of a nearby forest. It was close to my house, which was currently full of people packing up my things for college. Jane seemed more quiet today, so I thought I'd take her out by the river to get her talking about what was bothering her.
You gonna miss this place? I know I am. I remember we've been walking out here since we were kids. It's gonna be weird to walk out here without you.
Miss it? What, are you not going to walk out here anymore? I mean, you could always just come out here, try to reminisce. It's not like I'm going to be non-existent to you. I mean, I do have a phone. We can talk on the phone, as much as you want. Come on. It's not going to be that bad. What's bothering you anyway?
I know you are just gonna be a phone call away, but I know I'm still gonna miss you. I mean, you might make new friends. Think you're gonna replace me?
Replace you? Never. I mean, come on, let's not focus on me leaving while I'm still here. It's not going to be that bad. Is there something on your mind? Like, you've just seemed very weird lately, and I just want to know what's bothering you. I'd hate to leave without, figuring out what was wrong.
Don't worry about me. I'm just maybe under the weather a little bit. I just wish that you could take me with you to get away from this place. But I know that that's an impossibility.
Yeah, I wish we got into the same college. Where are you going to go for college anyway? No, you know what? I know you always tell me not to talk about college. I know you don't like that kind of thing. Let's just, I just want you to know that I'm never going to stop being your friend or abandon you, okay? If there's anything ever bothering you, you can always tell me.
Don't worry about me. I'm fine.
I still remember the look on her face as I walked away. It was the last time I ever saw it. Not until I looked in my mirror. After the night I saw her face in the mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling I was always being watched. Sleep was becoming non-existent, and my paranoia had increased to the point where I couldn't figure out what was real and what wasn't. Every time I walked by a window or a mirror, I would see her, standing there, watching me. When I would take my morning jog, I would see her in the windows of my neighbors' homes, just watching me. It didn't feel like her. I felt like a cold, angry presence, and not the warmness that she used to fill me with. Eventually, I broke down and went back to my therapist, who just told me exactly what I thought she would say. That my guilt and my grief were just making me see things. That I just needed to unwind and de-stress. Maybe take a vacation. In the back of my mind, I knew she was right. But in the forefront, I knew that I needed to figure out why this was happening. I knew I hadn't spoken to her stepdad or her mother since the funeral. She was living with them until this all happened. I thought maybe they would have some insight or maybe something about all this that was going on. I drove all the way back to her hometown to visit, and things were strange. Both of her parents didn't seem like they were all that upset. I remember at the funeral it was different, but thinking back on it, maybe it was all for show. After having a coffee and explaining why I was there, they let me back into her room to look around. Obviously, I didn't tell them everything. They might think I was crazy. Inside the room, not much had changed since high school. This struck me as a little bit odd, but I eventually spied what I was looking for. Journals. I took a quick look over my shoulder and opened one of them up. I could feel the cold chill of Jane nearby, her presence lingering in the corner of the room as I began to read. I wanted to find out what was bothering her that day, the day that I left. I must have gone through 3 journals until I found the entry.
He leaves today. I wanted to tell him everything, but he might think I'm crazy. I've told him so many things about home, but never the really bad stuff. He might not even believe me. I'm afraid that when he leaves, I'll truly have nobody to protect me. From the prayer room. Yesterday I told him Mother wanted to go to the university instead of the Academy for All Girls of Faith to teach us how to be wives and true women of God. I told her I wanted to be a veterinarian because I love animals. She hit me. Put me in the prayer room for an entire day. I hate that room. At night I hear sounds in the walls. I never heard it when I was a kid in there, but I know it's just the isolation. It was making me crazy in that small closet. I want to tell him about it, and maybe he'd take me out of here, but that would just burden him. I'm gonna try, but I probably won't. He's going off to begin his life. He doesn't need me to be stuck with him.
A cold chill went down my spine as I read this. The entries that followed seemed to get worse and worse. Her mind seemed to be deteriorating to the point where the writings came off as a manifesto of a sad person. I kept flipping until I got to the very last entry. It was short.
There is no hope in the shattered abyss. In the void, there's only the dark. It's quiet now. I think I need to go. I need to call him to change my mind before I have no hands in the night to pull me out of this.
I closed the journal and sat on Jane's bed for a few minutes. I felt cold. I heard the creak of a door open and I assumed it was her mother coming in to see what I was doing, but her bedroom door remained shut. Instead, her closet door opened. She had 2 closets in that room, a sliding door and then a side door, which I always assumed was an attic access, but it wasn't. I wish it was. When I got close, I could see a room that looked like somebody lived in there. There was a blanket, a pillow, but there wasn't any room to lay down. On the walls and door, there was scratch marks. There were pages of scripture also taped on the walls of the closet. Crosses hung next to a list of 3 rules. Pray to be forgiven. Think about your degenerate behavior. And remain pure. I took a step back out of the closet, my heart in my throat. The coldness of the room increased until a dark, decaying hand reached out of the darkness of the closet. I wanted to scream, but I realized who it was. The hand slowly pulled the door shut, revealing the locks on the outside of it. I could hear the sounds now, banging in the walls, creaking and aching wood that traveled in a path towards me. When the banging got loud enough, I bolted from the house without saying goodbye to her parents, who seemed to have forgotten I was even there. I got in my car just to sit and resonate what I had seen. I started to drive slowly out of there eventually when I caught my breath, but something was wrong. I got to the end of the street and there was something in the road. It was like a veil of black smoke that hid at the end of the road from my sight.
Don't leave.
I froze, my eyes slowly looking into my rearview mirror to see Jane sitting in my back seat. My heart started to pound, and my grip on my steering wheel only tightened. When I couldn't take the adrenaline, I screamed as loud as I could and slammed my foot down on the gas. My car ripped down the street and pierced the dark mist. The entire cabin of my car was consumed in blackness. My breathing started to get harder, but I could still feel Jane in the back seat, her cold hands gripping my shoulders. But then there were more. 2 more hands came to grip onto my waist, from around the seat, then 2 more, then 2 more. I was screaming as all these hands were covering me, consuming me. They retracted when I pierced the dark mist, and I let out a laugh as the sun glazed through my windshield. But then I realized I had driven straight into the woods. I tried to slow down and stop, but my car flew over the ridge of the river. I crashed, and everything went black. I snapped awake in the middle of a dark void, but I knew I wasn't alone. I sat cross-legged in the middle of it on the ground and tried to take in my surroundings. But after a moment, Jane, as she was the day I left, came walking out of the dark to sit in front of me. She seemed much happier now. Maybe I was dead too, or so I thought in the moment. I stared into those eyes. The eyes that brought me comfort and warmth all through my childhood. Even when things got tough, I didn't feel cold here. I felt whole.
You finally know, and I'm sorry that I had to be this way, but I wish I had told you sooner, but I really couldn't.
No. I'm sorry for lying to you. I left and I never kept in touch. I guess I felt like when I left, I guess I had to leave everything behind, whether I wanted to or not, but you know what? I'm an idiot. I left you behind, but I just never knew the extent of what was happening to you, or I didn't know that was happening. And I can't blame you for not telling me, because I don't know what I would have done had I known.
I don't blame you. I just wanted you to know that it wasn't your fault. None of it was. You still came back here, and I don't want you to leave again, but I know that you have to. Your life isn't here in the dark with me. I brought myself here to get away, and you deserve to live a happier life away from all this.
The happiest parts of my life are always with you. And I'm sorry that you had to go. But is there anything that I can do to... I know there isn't. I know that's... I think I go back to that day that you brought me to that baptism pool. And you told me that you loved me, and I said that I loved you too. And then everything changed after that. I don't know. Maybe in a way I was just young and stupid, but I guess I still love you. And I'll always love you. And I just wish that things would have been different. I wish I could just go back in time and take you with me, and we could have built a life together, gone places, done things that people do when they build lives together. But I know that I can't do that. And for that, I am always going to be sorry. And I'm always going to love you. I may not have picked up the phone like I should have when you reached out for help. But I know that now that things are just meant to be this way. And I'll always love you.
And I'll always love you. But it's time for you to let go. And it's time for me to go. I want you to go to the cliff where I had left this world. And I want you to wait for my phone call. And then I want you to let it go. And then I want you to move on. And then I want you to be happy for me.
I awoke in the hospital after that. The fire department fished me out of the river. They had done something similar when I was a kid and jumped in the river. I was stupid back then. That brings us to now. The waves crashed below me, calming my heart, and my mind is finding peace. Today is the day she brought me here to await her final call. When my phone buzzed, I answered it without hesitation. There was no answer on the other end, just the sound of angry water crashing onto the rocks below. I know that this was it. I looked at her picture on my phone one last time, remembering our entire lives from when we were young and through the darkness, and then now into the light. I threw my phone down into the awaiting abyss. I felt lighter, more free, but it was time to go, just as she said. When I walked towards my car, I looked back one last time. The sun coming up over the horizon showed me Jane, standing where I once did, her smile giving me release and peace as I walked away for the last time. I walked down the old trail that we used to as kids. I guess I just wanted to do it one last time before I moved away for good. Grief is a process. Guilt is a cancer. Pain will pass, but true love never dies.